So here we are at the end of the day, and I'm here with Ray Anton from the Rural Hospital Network and fellow board member from the Rural General Practice Network. Just reflections on the day, Ray. Was it what you'd expected?
Yeah, it's difficult to really set high expectations because you don't really know what's going to happen with these kinds of sessions. They were pretty impromptu. It came together rather quickly compared to normal conferences. We ended up with a huge participation, 80 people. That's fantastic. And a very broad range of people came together, practitioners, and unfortunately, I didn't see enough DHB representation in the group. There was great Ministry of Health representation, practices, PHOs, but it would have been nice to see a bit more DHB representation, frankly.
There was a range of people from different DHBs, but maybe it would have been good to see a higher level of person, more people from the planning and funding, maybe some DHB CEs engaging with it.
I agree. I think there's a lot of skepticism and trepidation that this is another talk fest, and there's another process of trying to engage the sector, and will it be successful or not. Now we all, I think, have a stake to see it succeed, because alliancing is an opportunity, and you've mentioned that many times, Joe. I believe strongly that alliancing and having those relationships is the way forward to find the right solution of health services, especially in rural. It's just how we're going to get that DHB elephant to be part of the conversation.
I think maybe part of it is that we were talking about rural service level alliances, and there was, for me, an expectation that this was going to be about the rural bonus, rural workforce, rural after-hours funding alone. And it was one of the things I'm most excited about really from the day, was that an acceptance and a realization and the conversations that it's actually much more important and bigger than that. And that in actual fact, those current levels of funding they may be part of the picture in some areas, but they're not the whole of the picture by any means. For me, one of the key things that came out of it is that the alliance structure finally provides an infrastructure for conversations between the providers, the PHOs and DHBs, with some teeth to it and some real motivation to make sustainable services for our communities. And it's not bad that it's starting in rural. I think it's actually probably quite natural that it's starting in rural, partly because we have big issues, our workforce issues, our community demand issues,
urgent care.
Yep. So we've got all of those things that are going on. We've always been there is where there's been innovation. We already have really good multidisciplinary teams and connections with our communities. So in many ways, we're actually starting off from a really good space.
I agree. I think rural is a perfect environment for creating alliances. There's so much stake and passion in rural communities for health services. The GPs working 24/7, the rural hospitals coming together with local areas and trying to find solutions that are appropriate locally. There has been threats in the past in rural. You know, we are going to close you down. We're going to take away health services. We're centralizing services into the bigger centers. So that has been the story for many, many years, and we saw the outcome of that. But we're seeing a change. The better, sooner, more convenient concept of services being delivered closer to home is introduced a whole new conversation in health. And then the alliances where people sit at the table with the DHB to discuss, and the PHO, to discuss how we're going to do the better, sooner, more convenient. Now that is the exciting part of it. And it would be unfortunate if people think that alliancing is about the subject of reallocating rural bonuses. Now that conversation, if it's going to be had, it should be had very quickly. It's really the excitement of around how do we formulate a better health service that delivers equitable, fair access to services in rural areas. That is the conversation. How we achieve it and the hurdles around it is where it's going to be challenging, but I'm excited. I'm looking forward to how that's going to work in the future. And frankly, I think that the network and the ministry have a responsibility. And they've articulated that in the meeting, and both you did and the ministry did, that there is a responsibility to support alliances to function better, to benchmark and use good examples, share the New Zealand experience around the country, develop leadership skills, because that's also going to be necessary, develop governance and capabilities within those alliances. It's a new beast that needs to start to build itself up. And the conference that we had today was a good way of starting to put some energy towards that. And I think it's great to be able to keep progressing it in the future.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the outcomes from today will be documented, and that'll be part of the way it can be shared. Yeah. Presumably, if people are watching this, then they've linked into the online resources around it, which is fantastic. In the near future, the network will be contacting Alliance leadership teams, contacting through its networks the providers, looking for to develop a conduit for regular conversations between the different regions around these alliance issues, and that we can then elevate into the ministry through the Rural Advisory Group, which is one of the outcomes from the review of the Rural Ranking Score. So, yeah, having been involved in those discussions over a number of years now, it's felt like quite a watershed today. This has been a drawing a line on those conversations and the beginning of an exciting time for moving forward. We are going to need providers to get engaged in the conversations. Yeah. That's going to be a two-way conversation. There's going to be the PHOs and DHPs are going to need to engage providers. Providers are going to also need to step up and be available for to engage
that's
as well.
That's absolutely correct. And John made a really strong comment that part of the problem of trying to achieve success in this area is that rural practices are usually independent small practitioners working in their own little mom and dad shops, and how do those come together in a collective and speak in a single voice, speak in a stronger voice. The PHO may have a role to play in there. Maybe the SLAT, the Rural Service Level Alliance team, may have a role in that. It's how that's going to come together. It's a great opportunity to give voice to rural doctors and nurses and rural facilities. And we're opening the avenue, the venue for them to do that. And we need to keep encouraging them to participate. And there was some commentary towards the end of the day. How do I get involved? And that's great. Asking the question is the first thing.
Was there anything surprising that came out of the day for you? Was there any sort of key sort of thing that sort of made you take a sharp intake of breath?
I think I was surprised at the breadth of what has been achieved. Actually, some of those business cases that took some years to develop. It seems to me that there were some big risks taken, some willingness to be courageous by some DHPs to step up and participate in an alliance process. Surprising that it actually worked, and I'd like to see it. I'd like to see more of that being brought out to other practices or other alliances to say, well, this is how our formula. It may not be yours, but this is our formula. But specifically, this is the outcomes that we got out of it. And can you achieve those outcomes? And that would be fantastic to be able to kind of spread that. But I was a bit surprised. I'm pleasantly so.
So at the beginning of the day, my word for the day was anxious. And I think at the end of the day, my word for the day would be optimistic. I'm really optimistic that there's engagement from the District Health Board, from the PHO, that there's a beginning of a common understanding of the values and principles that are underpinning this process, and a real understanding that this is much more than the discussion about shifting the deck chairs of the rural funding around in rural areas. So that's been a key thing for me, and has changed my anxiety to optimism. So.
Well, I'm happy for you to have that optimism. I share some optimism. I have some cynicism still that it's going to work as well all over the country. There are a lot of hurdles to be overcome because of deficits that DHBs run and how they're going to manage those deficits and still participate in innovation in this area. But it is the best opportunity that we've ever had to have a solution for health services in New Zealand.
Thanks, that is right. So thank you very much, and I'd also like to just take the opportunity to say thank you to the people who organised the day, the people from the network and the Ministry of Health. It was a fantastic day. Obviously it takes a lot of time to organise those things, and also mobile health solutions. You know, it's been fantastic with the IT, so thank you very much.